Hey there, welcome to a little garden tour. I haven't really been keeping up too much with the gardening, but we had a really hot, dry summer, and I'm just now getting back out. It's fall, it's October, the temperatures have come down, and finally here in coastal South Carolina, you can do some things. So I've been trimming and getting things back. I wanted to take you on a walk around the garden just to see what's going on as I'm doing my cleanup. Maybe shifting some things, planting some things, and looking out for some things. So I will see you there. All right, so here is my garden now. I've had to really trim back some things, but one thing that went really well is these alyssum that I planted, and these came from seed, every one of them. And I really had a bunch of seeds and even got like a box of seed that I had gotten several at, I think it was like Dollar Tree, and just shook them all around, and they have made these beautiful drifts, and they are really coming back nicely now. I'm actually looking here and seeing that there's some purple in some of these. They got really stringy and a little dried out, you know, over the summer. Even though we get part sun here, still they were struggling, and now they're starting to come back. So I've had to cut back of them. As you can see, some of them get a little bit leggy, and some of these I will probably have cut back, but I'm very pleased overall how they've done, and just that they have been so long lasting. And I know here they may overwinter. I've had several that were over here farther down our walkway that have lived. And even if they don't, I mean, you just get a couple packs of seeds. They're super easy to come up and germinate, though they take a little while. I've put a lot of them around because I love the white, and I just like the low growing habit. They don't get too, you know, high and crazy, and they really just look kind of tidy over there. So my dahlias were looking really bad, and now since the heat is gone, they are starting to bud up again. It looks like I'm going to get a few more blooms, which I'm glad. I didn't really get that many, and they've gotten a little bit tall, and I've had to stake them, and looks like I need to kind of restake them. The pentas, of course, have done really well, as they always do. They are my staple, and I have seeds just waiting for me to start planting. These like foxtail ferns or whatever have done great. There are some begonias in here that didn't do as well. Those beautiful dragon wing ones. I left them in the pot, but I probably should have put them somewhere else. Now, I was going to try to take these ferns out, and it looked like such a mess that I just left them. Last year, I overwintered these inside, and then in the spring, I just brought them back out. So I may just do the same so they don't get out of hand. I think they're also cousins of the asparagus fern, and they can get a little wild, as well as these. They have like these pricker things that keep shooting up, and it says they do that when they don't get enough sun. So I've kind of moved them out here to where they are getting a little bit more sun. Now I've added a few things in. Let's see, I've got this, let's see, what is it? The Fabulous, no, Center Stage Red Crepe Myrtle. That was half off at Home Depot. So it was $29, and I got it a week ago for $15. And I'm happy about that. I wanted to have this beautiful chocolate foliage. Where's my hand? There we go. This beautiful chocolate foliage with the red blooms. Now, they were all done blooming since I've purchased, but crepe myrtles do really well here. And so I'm really excited to plant this and have this in my garden coming up for next season. This is looking a little bit tired, but something that's done really well is this beautiful little cherry salvia that I got probably in the middle of the summer. So it's done really nicely. And I got a new bunch of Shasta daisies recently that I popped in, as well as these little, I don't know what these are. I have to look them up. They are basically growing wild on the side of the road, and I'm hoping I just like stick some kind of weed in here, but they're so cute. They remind me a little bit of a chamomile flower, but I'm pretty sure they're not chamomile. And I also had some mums that were given to me for free when I went shopping at Food Lion. So I put these garden mums in. They are already done blooming again. That's why they were free. But next year I'm hoping they will come up here, and they were a very pretty, you know, fall colors, like an orangey maroon. My front garden here is doing pretty well. Again, we're kind of coming to the end of the season. My pentas there have looked good. The agapanthus did very well. And I had a little bit of the alyssum here, but I think it was covered up by some other things and didn't do so well. The twining things that I put on here has done really well. Now I moved that, what do you call it? Not forsythia, honeysuckle over here, as well as the sweet autumn clematis that it's everywhere, but I also put that up here. And these winding roses have done very nicely. I didn't get a ton of blooms on this one here. It had some beautiful kind of a peachy color, but not didn't get a lot of blooms. Maybe I don't get enough sun. And so on the back side here, I had these gladiolas, the red ones, and there are tulips down here. So we'll see how those come back. And the sweet autumn clematis, of course, grows very, very well, but will die back, but is currently blooming over here, which I just love. And I'll show you the one on my front porch, which is finally blooming. The first one started back in August by my vegetable garden, which was kind of early. And I want to say that everything is blooming and going about a month, I think, early. This hydrangea is not looking that great, but that's kind of how they all look at the end of the season, I will say. This lion's ears, I believe it is just starting to come into bloom, and it's kind of early. I will say usually it's a little bit later in the season, but it looks like it's going to have a ton of blooms. I've given it some, you know, TLC as I've been kind of keeping up with these garden beds, but every one of these little things like this is a new bloom, and every one of these is going to blossom into what looks like these, and the hummingbirds love them if they're still around. We had such a cold snap this week. It was down to 43 nights in a row, and that is very cold for this time of year. I know it sounds crazy, but we don't get those kind of temperatures usually until December. So it was the beginning of October, the middle of October, and it's just very unseasonably colder quickly, and especially those nighttime temperatures. So the plants are responding, and you know, they're just kind of a little bit freaking out. These pentas are the ones that I overwintered last year in a big pot in my house, and so they are pretty tall, and they've done pretty well. The other lion's paw, I keep calling it lion's paw, I think it's lion's ear, I moved over here. It was part, I don't know if one just broke off and started growing, but they're so large, I really need to move both of them. I moved this one over here to get it out of the way. And I tried to move this one. It had such a taproot, and I had been moving so many other plants that I gave up. But I'm kind of wishing that I did move it. I really have to find a place to put this, perhaps in the front island or somewhere where it has room to grow and perhaps gets a little bit more sun. Though it does nice here, it just grows so tall that it kind of blocks out everything, and I don't really want this, you know, kind of blocking as you come up my walkway. You know, you really can't see anything behind it. Now it does die down, and so it takes a while for it to grow up, but by the middle of the summer, the shoots are there, and they're pretty tall, as you can see. I mean, this one in the middle is almost as tall as me, so it's about 5 foot tall, and you can't clip them because then you'll clip all the flowers off. So it's a good 4 to 5 feet tall, so it's very tall. And I need to kind of just take care of that a little bit and try to move this to someplace else. Now over here, the alyssum didn't do quite as well. This really became very full. I planted this hyacinth bean, and it probably wasn't the best idea because it was just like overrun right here. This is a very aggressive, thick, big vine, though it makes beautiful purple flowers. And at the end, you get these beautiful bean pods, and I came out here the other day and I just clipped a lot of them off and put them in a brown bag to collect so I can seed next time. next year, and maybe I'll put them like growing up a tree. Probably the better thing would have been to put it up that crepe myrtle right there, or something else, because it did block the bird feeder, and it just kind of made a real mess here, and blocked out the garden. So I have to be really careful. It all sounds really good in the spring when everything is small and I'm looking for some things, but you can see this vine grows very, very tall, very, very tall, and it will keep climbing. So I have to kind of figure out where I'm going to put that for next year. Let's see what else. The garden here has done okay. We had a very challenging season. It was cold in the beginning. It was rainy for like a month. It was dry for several months. Then it rained again. Then it was dry. We've had a very dry fall now. Hardly any rain. We had rain from that hurricane that came through a couple weeks ago, and nothing since, and another week, no rain. So I'm having to water, even though the temperatures are low. I'm having to continue to water. Now these have done great. These are the, except for the little bit of white fly that are coming out of these, but not enough that I've had to really worry. I've just kept them. These were so tiny, and so I think these two, I'm gonna either have to keep them cut or move them, though I really like the way they look. These are the ligustrum. I've got the tag over here. Let me grab it for you because I'm trying to remember the name. I want to say limelight, but I know that's not it. Sunshine. The sunshine ligustrum. And they have done really nice in just 2 years. I bought them last year and they've really grown. This is my limelight hydrangea, which is not really looking very well. In fact, it's got some powdery mildew and it has been kind of a rough season for it. I had it in the backyard last year and I brought it out here, and I think I probably should have left it. So I'm going to move it to the back. It's been also in this pot for 2 years. So I'm going to check it out and for the winter and see if it needs to be repotted, or maybe put it in the ground in the backyard. It did really well last year, and it did bloom nice. The blooms are beautiful. They are like a bright white, kind of a lime color, and but now it's lost a lot of its leaves, and usually by the end of the season, my hydrangeas are looking pretty bad, but and they always come back pretty nicely. This cigar plant or cigarette plant, the I can't think of the name of it at the moment, has grown, again, super tall. They die back, and then you forget how big they actually get. This was the new one that I got, and it's just about as tall as the one that I've had here for about 5 years, maybe longer. But the hummingbirds have loved it. The snapdragons have been blooming since last winter and maybe before. I believe I bought these all before the holidays last year. So I've gotten almost an entire year. They get a lot of shade, and they've done really well. So I'm just going to keep them going. This wire vine I bought right around the holidays last year, and it's been in this box the whole time. And the pentas, of course, still look good, though I'm thinking about, with the cold nights, they've started to yellow up a little bit. They don't like it around 40 at all. And about popping these out and putting in some winter pansies or whatever. So I got it. But they all, you know, the pentas still look good. So it's hard to pull them out when they look good, but it is what it is. It's time to do it. Something else that just started to bloom is my pineapple sage. This was a new one given to me by my friend across the street, my little gardening friend, and it is blooming. And the hummingbirds like that too. I'm hoping they're still around. It is kind of also blocking. It gets very leggy and big too, and probably should not be in here, but then all these die back and then take a long time growing. By the end of the summer, they're huge. This is the one that I thought died last year and actually came back. I couldn't believe it. I really thought it was dead. I just never dug it up. And lo and behold, it started in the spring coming back to life. So I actually trimmed it just a little bit. And then here, let me show you my pride and joy, even though it's getting a little bit out of hand, but this is the Sweet Autumn Clematis. It's been here for a couple years. Again, it dies back every winter, so has to start all over, but the root system must be pretty good because this one was pretty aggressive this year. And for the first time, I didn't cut it all back, and it's blooming just very late. I think in the past I was like, I can't believe it. I let this thing grow up the whole summer and nothing. And this time I just let it go and saw a couple blooms, and I said, I'm just gonna see what happens. Even though it is kind of a mess at the front steps here, It is beautiful, smells great, and of course is covered in insects right now, getting all that sweet, sweet pollen. It smells just like licorice up here. So I'm excited. And maybe because it doesn't get as much sun, it's kind of part shade over here, that it's just taken a lot longer to bloom, about 2 months later than the ones that I had out in more of a sunny location. So yay to that. I have this one growing over here now that I put in, I think last year, so maybe next year, but I don't know that I want it on both sides because I don't think we'll be able to go up the stairs. It is quite aggressive, so perhaps I should get like a trellis or something on the side over here for next year and have it grow up that instead of all around the railing. But anyway, it finally is blooming and I'm excited. So the other thing that's been blooming, and you can probably, it's done, there might be one, is these Camellia sinensis, which are, maybe it's gonna bloom again. Uh-oh. Oh, I thought that was like a bug, like a little caterpillar. This is the tea camellia, and they are supposed to bloom like in November, December, and January, I want to say. I remember taking pictures when I saw the ones when it was really cold, so I want to say maybe it was like December, that I saw somewhere else. And so I bought 2, and they started blooming like 2 months ago. I'm like, why are they blooming so early? There's one of the blossoms. Let me see. There it is. And they do smell like green tea. So I know it's the first year I've had it, so it's probably going to take a little while to kind of get itself acclimated, and I just planted this in the early spring. But I wanted to put camellia here, and I actually got 2 really nice ones. This one had lots of blooms. You can see all the little, you know, dried blossoms bloom. Maybe it gets a little bit more sun. Again, this has been overgrown here. This hibiscus I had in a different location, and it was very shaded, and it never got more than about 2 feet high. And this year, again, this thing is a good 4 feet tall and bloomed its head off, but now I believe it's done. But it did shade a lot of the plants behind it, so it's a great spot. But I have so many things back on the backside. Either I have to keep it really pruned, or I'm gonna have to think about moving that as well. Finally, the plumbago is blooming. I just don't have any luck with this. I moved the plant and finally it blooms. Literally, it's been growing all summer. I think it just doesn't get enough sun, and I thought I had it in a sunny spot. But then all these garden mums have grown up again. I pulled all of these out like 2 years ago, and I said, I'm sick of these things. They grow all over the sidewalk, and they're a real pain. And then I was feeling really sad that they were gone. And I don't know where they came back from, but they did. They're called my Thanksgiving mums. I know that that's not the right name, but they always bloom around Thanksgiving. However, they are all budded up, and I really think like we're probably going to get a little bit earlier bloom, but they are full of buds, and it's going to be beautiful. They are kind of a bright pink, like a light pink, very pretty, very pretty. So we'll let it go. And the trick to these is you have to trim them. You're supposed to trim them like early summer, because if you don't want to trim off the blossoms, but then if you don't trim them, look, they can be very, very tall. This thing is a good 3.5 to 4 feet right here. So you have to keep up with them. This vinca has self-seeded itself. I have no idea where this came from. I might have had something here, and I don't know, but I just left it grow. It has gotten so nice. I pinched it a few times, and it has really gone to town and had a real nice, you know, presence, and just growing on its own. I got some calendula, and when I went in here to trim, I also noticed that there are some nasturtiums that I planted back in February that stayed all year, and I think that's because there were things all around it protecting it because from the heat. If you keep things really shaded and then bring them back out, it can be nice. Like I had calendula planted here, and then I bought these at a plant sale a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, oh, it's so nice to see these sunny little cuties this time of the year, which I never do. Usually I plant them early. I also got a scented geranium, which I'll be planting in a regular pot and taking into the house. It's a tender perennial here. I could bring it out when I need to. The angelonia that I had overwintered. Didn't do fantastic. It was okay. It could have been the space that I had it in. Some of it died, and then this is still there, but I don't know. It didn't go great. It was an experiment. It lived, and I cut it way back, and then it seemed to thrive for a while, and then it didn't go well. I think it didn't like the heat. These, I don't know. Underneath this is a beautiful, I can see the tag down there. Oh my gosh, my brain. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, I'll think of it in a minute. Which I also put morning glories. These are white morning glories that have hardly done anything and look like they were half dead. And now they look like they're all coming back. So it looks like either they're just going to get a lot of leaves or there's going to be some flowers. I'm not really sure. So I'm just going to let it go on its own. Underneath there is the other flower, which I see the tag down here. And I will bring it up for you. Clematis. It's the Hyde Hall. And it's down there too, and it did get a little second bloom, but I think it kind of got overrun by these morning glories. And my roses have done very well here against the house. All the roses up here have done really nicely. Yikes, be careful there. You know, they're not that interesting looking on the bottom, so I put them in the back. I feel like they're not the most beautiful plant. You know, it's like a stick, and then there's some nice roses at the top. The knockouts that I moved and trimmed up came back very nicely, and they did really, really well. So around the whole back, I have the roses. There's the other knockout over there. And my endless summer hydrangea did really, really well this year, especially the little one that had come off of it as a baby that's blooming in pink. I probably showed you earlier, and is still blooming. I just picked a flower off of it last week, and it's blooming again. This is the baby from that one that kind of layered and created its own. It was on the ground, and it created its own roots. And I dug it up early last year in the beginning of this, probably late winter, and put it over here, and it's done really nicely. All the hydrangeas have done pretty well. What else do I have to show you? I put a few new things out in the front island. Kind of take a look now. Things are starting to wind down, but there's still some pretty color and still some things happening. And in the front island, I bought some new things. This is a gloxinia. I've never grown it before, but our Brook Green Gardens had a plant sale a couple weeks ago, and I bought a couple things that they grow there locally. So I know things will grow here because they grow them right there and use them for their gardens. So this is a gloxinia. Beautiful. Look at these flowers. And I couldn't resist that. It just looks really pretty. I got, this is a hummingbird bush. I'm not sure. It's supposed to have some red flowers that gets a little bit big. So we'll see how that does next year. And I got some more garden mums here. A different variety because, you know, you don't have enough. Here we don't have enough fall foliage, but what I'm looking at right here that I just noticed is my witch hazel, which has just been kind of growing along, not doing a whole lot, but I'm looking and there are little buds. This thing is supposed to put on a show in the winter time, and look at that, there are little buds. I've never grown it before, so it's brand new, but it's budding up all over the place. And I cannot wait to see what this is going to look like. I got this for my birthday, so in March, I planted it after seeing it in a magazine and like how beautiful it can be. So I put it here where it has some room, and we will just see how it goes. Let's see here. I've got my, I got one of these, I knew there was something else. What is it called? False indigo, also Baptista. So I've got one of those finally. I've been wanting to get one, and they had it at Brook Green. These things just keep going no matter what. We don't have to do much with that. And I have a pink one. This one actually came from the wild down the street. It was in the woods, and I dug it out, and it's come back really nice. So I have all of them in the front because you don't have to do much with them, and they just live. These I planted, look, it's got like a raspberry color. Some of them are like the pink, and then I have the yellow, so you can't go wrong. My Beautyberry did amazing. I really cut this thing hard a couple years ago, and it just had tons of berries. Look at they're weighted down, but I don't want to cut them because the mockingbirds and other birds eat them. Now, once they get a little shriveled up, sort of like these, they'll come and start eating. So I've just left it. And I think what I'd like to do is just trim. It was very tall, probably well over 6 foot tall. And I just started cutting it. And I left this just as a little privacy here. But I think that's what it needed. If you don't prune it, they get out of hand. And the front island has come a long way. It had nothing in here to begin with. And then I moved, sorry, a mosquito is chasing me. I moved the lantana from the walkway and put another lantana, 3 lantanas. And what's done really surprising is these great coleus. I also dug up some goldenrod that was blooming around the block. So I'm not sure if they're gonna make it. I need to water out here, honestly. And some of the other things in here, the black-eyed Susans did really well. And the Monarda bee balm that I put in here. So last but not least, we're gonna move on over here to the apple tree. The peach, I didn't get any peaches, and it was just, I'm not really sure what's going on with this peach. It's really struggled. I'm gonna try to take care of it a little bit and give it some fertilizer, so hopefully we'll get some peaches. It's been a while. I really trimmed this apple tree. I think I did a video on talking about this. If I didn't, about a month ago, I pruned hard and opened up this apple tree, which I had never done before. I didn't really realize you're supposed to do that. And I really pruned it after all the trouble we had with trying to cover this thing. I didn't want to have to deal with it again. It is pruned way down. It was much taller than it is now. And I'd like to even prune it a little more, but they said don't chew it all. And now I have a friend. I learned that the Anna apple, which is what we have here, needs a friend called the Golden Dorset. And this just arrived 2 days ago. It's a little tiny thing, but I have a little friend and I've got to plant him now so that the Golden Dorset can kind of mate up and cross-pollinate with Anna apple so that she'll get even better apples. She's such an early bloomer. In fact, I can see buds forming up. Where is this thing? On here. I don't know if you can get it. There's little buds trying to form. This thing blooms several times a year, but really blooms in February and usually gets hit by the late frost that we have. So there it is. Next job is to work on the vegetable garden. This thing is still blooming. This is the one that started to bloom way back in August, and it looks like it's still kind of going. It just grew here randomly on this little fence. This is all of the prunings from the apple tree, and I didn't want to get rid because I told my husband, hey, that's apple wood, and we can cut it into, you know, some of the larger pieces for when we grill. I mean, that's what people use, right? Apple wood smoked. So I just sort of let them sit here to kind of get the leaves gone, and then I'm going to cut them up into little pieces because we do have a hardwood grill, and he can use that apple wood when he's grilling. So I didn't want to just chuck them. And this poor garden really needs some help. The strawberries, however, look amazing. They're liking the cool weather, and I do see that we have the chives still living in there, 1 pepper, and some parsley. So one of my next jobs is to get out here and get all these weeds and stuff out of here and start thinking about if I'm going to plant anything for the fall and the winter. I have so much going on in the rest of the garden and building that potting shed that I just kind of gave up for this year. And what I've decided to actually do is to start some cut flowers and make this a cut flower. There may be a few things, like I got some shallots and some garlic I'm going to plant, and we have the strawberries, but I'd like to go ahead and make most of this a cut flower garden and see how that goes. So that's my plan. If I can get the seeds and get them seeded, some early, you know, things I can't normally plant, and then get them here, and then they can be pulled out easily and some other ones can put. So if I can get that, that is the goal, and I will see you next time.